Promise I'll get you up. The two of us starting off with your body. Oh hell, oh well, I'll make you feel it again. Oh hell, oh well, don't stop unless you pretend. Oh hell, oh well, we're naked, touching by skin. Oh hell, oh, getting lost inside us. One look at you was not enough. You know how to play it and you play it rough. We be going up, we fit like the gloves, our hand in a glove. You and I, we got something even people can't find with luck. Our own domain of secret love. We got it going and we're going on. Waking up at 6 o'clock and I feel you up. We're getting hot, yeah. The nights a blur, but I remember you for sure. Over the furniture, we gave it all, we exhausted. Oh hell, oh well, I'll make you feel it again. Oh hell, oh well, don't stop unless you pretend. One look at you was not enough. You know how to play it and you play it rough. We be going up, we fit like the gloves, our hand in a glove. You and I, we got something even people can't find with luck. Our own domain of secret love. We got it going and we're going on. Oh hell, oh well, we fit like the gloves, our hand in a glove. Oh hell, oh well, we got it going and we're going on. Oh hell, oh well, I'll make you feel it again. Oh hell, oh well, don't stop unless you pretend. Oh hell, oh well, I'll make you feel it again. Oh hell, oh well, don't stop unless you pretend. Just one look at you was not enough. You know how to play it and you play it rough. We be going up, we fit like the gloves, our hand in a glove. You and I, we got something even people can't find with luck. Our own domain of secret love. We got it going and we're going on. Never thought I'd be so far from home. Never thought our love could grow so cold. Never thought we had to run through burning fire. Never thought I had to miss you and I. Life changes as we know it. You do what you can, you just get through it. It's a mystery how people can get by on as little love as you and I. Never thought I'd be so far from home. Never thought our love could grow so cold. Never thought we had to run through burning fire. Never thought I had to miss you and I tried to stay into outgrowing. Time changes people, we both know this. It's a change of season when the tide comes rolling in and you realize there's nothing there to begin. Never thought I'd be so far from home. Never thought our love could grow so cold. Never thought we had to run through burning fire. Never thought I had to miss you and I. Oh, I'm counting roadblocks, you're counting crossroads. They were always there, but we never made a choice. It was never on the map, on this crooked road called life. we had to run through burning fire. I never thought I had to miss you and I. Never thought I'd be so far from home. Never thought our love could grow so cold. Not the kind of person who is sentimental, but this thing is making me